Because understanding great literature is better than trying to read and understand yet another business book. On the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, we commit to reading, dissecting, and analyzing the great books of the Western canon. You know, those books, from Jane Austen to Shakespeare, and everything else in between, that you might have fallen asleep trying to read in high school. We do this for our listeners, the owner, the entrepreneur, the manager, or the civic leader who doesn't have the time to read, dissect, analyze, and leverage insights from literature to execute leadership best practices in the confusing and chaotic postmodern world we all now inhabit. Welcome to the rescuing of Western civilization at the intersection of literature and leadership. Welcome to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast. Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, episode number 139. The friction inherent in being an activist leader, particularly a minority activist leader in a country as diverse and dynamic as the United States, is that sometimes you live long enough to see yourself and your heirs win the revolution you proposed, but not in the way that you thought that you would. Sometimes a win as a leader comes tinged with what might be perceived as a loss. Our novel today represents what would happen if Zora Neale Hurston's Janie Crawford from Their Eyes Are Watching God met Richard Wright's Bigger Thomas from Native Son and tried to build a life with him. This novel combines an ethnographic insight into race and gender with the cynical overtones of craven social norming and a lack of critical or even competent agency. Almost none of the characters in this novel are redeemable, but that's because the author couldn't come up with a way for them to be redeemed without breaking the activist lens through which she is writing. This book won a Pulitzer Prize and a National Book Award, which only means that critical thinking and analysis skills can fail to metastasize the further away the critic is from the subject matter he or she is passing a critique on. Today, we will be reading excerpts from and summarizing ideas within the first part of The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Leaders, be very careful how you celebrate a win. So we're going to open our conversation today with a reading from the first part of The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Dear God, I am 14 years old. I have always been a good girl. Maybe you can give me a sign letting me know what it is happening to me. Last spring after little Lucius come, I heard them fussing. He was pulling on her arm. She say, "It too soon, Fonzo. I ain't well." Finally, he leave her all alone. A week go by, he pulling on her arm again. She say, "Nah, I ain't gonna. Can't you see I'm already half dead, and all these children?" She went to visit her sister doctor over Macon, left me to see after the others. He never had a kind word to say to me, just say, "You gonna do what your mammy wouldn't." First he put his thing up against my hip and sort of wiggled it around. Then he grabbed hold of my titties. Then he pushed his thing inside my pussy. When that hurt, I cry. He started to choke me, saying, "You better shut up and get used to it." But I don't ever get used to it. And now I feel sick every time I be the one to cook. My mama, she fuss at me and look at me. She happy because he good to her now, but too sick to last long. Alice Monsignor Talua Kate Walker was born February 9th, 1944. She's still alive. She is now aged 81, and she is an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and African-American social activist. Over the span of her well over 60-year career, Walker has published 17 novels and short story collections, 12 nonfiction works, and endless collections of essays and poetry. Walker was born in rural Georgia, and she overcame challenges such as childhood injury and segregation to become high school valedictorian, and she successfully graduated from Sarah Lawrence College. She began her writing career with her first book of poetry, Once, and later wrote novels, including her best-known work, which we are talking about and attempting to analyze today for leaders, The Color Purple. The Color Purple follows a young, troubled black woman who is not just fighting her way through racist white culture, she is also fighting her way through patriarchal black culture. The book became a bestseller when it was published, and it was subsequently adapted into a critically acclaimed 1985 movie, which was directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg. And because we can't help but go back to the well these days, there was a 2005 Broadway musical that ran for 910 performances. By the way, the version of The Color Purple that I have has on the front that it was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. Alice Walker has never not had success during the course of her career, and she has never not been lauded and clapped for by the more progressive and socially liberal and activist elements of United States society. She is an individual who is a second-generation activist, coming of age after the civil rights movement and writing in the wake of the deaths of individuals like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and, of course, writing alongside folks like Eldridge Cleaver and Amiri Baraka, a.k.a. Leroy Jones. Walker has always been vetted and has seen her work turned into not only movies and Broadway performances, but also television shows, and has never not had success as an African-American woman in the late 20th and early 21st century of American arts and letters. There's a lesson here for leaders around timing and talent that they may want to consider. Back to the book, back to The Color Purple by Alice Walker. By the way, when you pick up The Color Purple, if you choose to pick up a copy of this book and read it, it is written in the form of letters, narrating the action and the internal dialogue of the main characters. Well, not all the main characters, just the narrator, Celie, not Cecily, Celie. Written in the form of letters. The letters begin with Dear God and move on to Dear Nettie, Celie's sister that disappears out of the narrative early and then reappears in an ephemeral form as a way of psychologically dealing with abuse. By the way, this is a novel of abuse. This is a novel of sexual abuse. This is a novel of emotional abuse. This is a novel of bad people behaving badly. This is also a novel that critiques the economic position of these folks, as well as critiquing race and their position in American society and culture. Because this is a novel of race and abuse and poverty, it is a hard novel to read. So this is just something to be aware of when you pick up a copy of The Color Purple. All right, back to the book. Dear God, Harpo asked his daddy why he beat me. Mr. Blank say, 'cause she my wife, plus she's stubborn. All women good for, he don't finish. He just tuck his chin over the paper like he do. Remind me of Pa. Harpo asked me, how come you stubborn? He don't ask how come you his wife. Nobody asks that. I say, just born that way, I reckon. He beat me like he beat the children, except he don't never hardly beat them. He say, Seeley, get the belt. The children be outside the room peeking through the cracks. It all I can do not to cry. I make myself wood. I say to myself, Seeley, you a tree. That's how come I know trees fear man. Harpo say, I love somebody. I say, huh? He say, a girl. I say, you do? He say, yeah, us plan to marry. Marry, I say, you're not old enough to marry. I is, he say, I'm 17, she's 15, old enough. What's her mama say, I asked. Ain't talked to her mama. What her daddy say? Ain't talked to him neither. Well, what she say? Us ain't never spoke. He ducked his head. He ain't so bad looking, tall and skinny, black like his mama, with great big bug eyes. Where y'all see each other, I asked. I see her in church, he say. She see me outdoors. She like you? I don't know. I wink at her. She act like she's scared to look. Where her daddy at while all this is going on? Amen, corner, he say. One of the things that jumps out to you about The Color Purple in general, and about Alice Walker's writing in particular, is that Alice Walker, as an artist, has devoted the vast majority of her talents and skills to walking the line, traversing the line, walking the thread between writing straight protest literature, whether she's protesting the patriarchy, protesting race, protesting class in a truly Marxist fashion, walking the line between that and her more artistic impulses. Walker is a writer who is in line with a long line of writers going back to the American Revolution, at least into the Civil War, at most, who write what the author James Baldwin would have called in his critique of Native Son by Richard Wright in his essay Everybody's Protest novel in 1949, what James Baldwin would have called protest literature. And, of course, Baldwin would have said, and I agree, that most protest literature, whether written by minority activists or female activists or sexual abuse activists or any other kind of activists, is really only glorified pamphleteering. But don't believe me. Directly from James Baldwin's critique of Native Son is this quote talking about Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I quote, "She was not so much a novelist as an impassioned pamphleteer. Her book was not intended to do anything more than prove slavery was wrong, was in fact perfectly horrible. This makes material for a pamphlet, but it is hardly enough for a novel." In our own era, pamphleteering and posting on social media, which is the 21st century version of pamphleteering, is a poor substitute overall for action, in particular, masculine-oriented action. It is indeed the natural outcome of the industrialized system of interaction between human beings that started as a result of the Civil War and really reached its apotheosis in the middle part of the 20th century when the civil rights movement, both for women and for African Americans, really kicked off, reached its apotheosis or reached its height. That industrialized system of interaction between human beings seeks to flatten and overlook, deny and evade man's innate complexity, something that the author is responsible for bringing out, rather than merely hitting us over the head repeatedly with shibboleths and with assertions. Walker, in The Color Purple, for her part, uses the natural flows, moods, and emotions of women to protest against the masculine world, against mechanization, and even hierarchy and authority, but she does so without allowing her characters to change any of those systems they are trapped in or protesting against. The characters in The Color Purple merely exist. They are the victims of inevitable impersonal forces that push on their race and class. They have little agency, little autonomy, and little hope. This, of course, is what Walker is protesting against. And while that may make material for a pamphlet, it is hardly enough for a novel. Hello. So I'm going to do some shilling here, and hopefully this will be a pause in our riveting conversation for you. I have an offer for you. My most recent book is 12 Rules for Leaders, The Foundation of Intentional Leadership. It's available in paperback, hardcover, or as an ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and any other place you order books. Now, in this book, I address the 12 leadership areas that I have found leaders need to be the most intentional in to be the type of leader followers actually want to follow. From establishing a foundation of leading teams through managing conflict effectively, all the way through leading teams through change, knowing what to do and why to do it can help readers, like the ones listening to this show, become better leaders. Look, reading this book and living it is like getting coaching from me directly without having to pay my full coaching rate. Head on over to leadershiptoolbox.us. That's leadershiptoolbox.us, and scroll down the homepage and click on the Buy Now button to purchase in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle format on Amazon 12 Rules for Leaders, the foundation for intentional leadership. And that's it for me. Now back to the show. Back to the book, back to The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Dear God, Harpo mope, wipe the counter, light a cigarette, look outdoors, walk up and down. Little Squeak run long, all up under him, trying to get his attention. Baby this, she say, baby that. Harpo look through her head, blow smoke. Squeak come over to the corner where me and Mr. Blank are at. She got two bright gold teeth in the side of her mouth. Generally grin all the time, now she cry. Miss Seeley, she say, what's the matter with Harpo? Sophie in jail, I say. In jail? She look like I say, Sophie in the moon. What's she in jail for, she asked. Sass and the mayor's wife, I say. Squeak pull up a chair, look down my throat. What's your real name, I ask her. She says, Mary Agnes. Make Harpo call you by your real name, I say. Then maybe he see you even when he in trouble. She look at me puzzled. I let it go. I tell her what one of Sophie's sisters tell me and Mr. Blank. Sophia and the prize fighter and all the children got in the prize fighter car and went to town. Came out on the street looking like somebody. Just then the mayor and his wife come by. All he's chillin', said the mayor's wife, digging in her pocketbook. Cute as little buttons, though, she say. She stopped, put her hand on one of the children's heads, say such and such strong white teeth. Sophia and the prize fighter don't say nothing. Wait for her to pass. Mayor wait too, stand back and tap his foot. Watch it with a little smile. Now Millie, he say, always going on over colored. Miss Millie fingered the children some more, finally look at Sophia and the prize fighter. She looked at the prize fighter car. She eyes Sophia wristwatch. She said to Sophia, "Are your children so clean?" She say. "Would you like to work for me, be my maid?" Sophia say, "Hell no." She say, "What you say?" Sophia say, "Hell no." Mayor look at Sophia, push his wife out the way, stick out his chest. "Girl, what you say, Miss Millie?" Sophia say, "I say hell no." He slap her. I stopped telling her right there. Squeak on the edge of her seat. She wait. Look down my throat some more. No need to say no more, Mr. Blank say. You know what happened if somebody slapped Sophia. Squeak go white as a sheet. Nah, she say. Nah, nothing, I say. Sophia knocked the man down. The police has come, start slinging the children off the mayor, banging their heads together. Sophia ready to start a fight. They drag her to the ground. As far as I can go with it, look like my eyes get full of water and my throat closed. Poor Squeak all scrunched down in her chair, trembling. They beat Sophia, Mr. Blank say. Squeak fly up like she sprung, rung over hide and counter to Harpo, put her arms around him. They hang together like a long time cry. What the prize fighter do in all this? I asked Sophia's sister, Odessa. He want to jump in, she say. Sophia say no, take the children home. Polices have them guns on him anyway. One move, he dead. 6 of them, you know. Mr. Blank will plead with the sheriff to let us see Sophia. Bub be in so much trouble, look. So much like the sheriff, he and Mr. Blank almost on family terms. Just as long as Mr. Blank know he colored. Sheriff say, she a crazy woman, your boy's wife. You know that? Mr. Blank say, yes, sir, us do know it. Been trying to tell Harpo she crazy for 12 years. Since way before they marry. Sophia come from crazy people, Mr. Blake say. It's not all her fault. And then again, the sheriff know how women is, anyhow. Sheriff think about the women he knows. Say, yep, you right there. Mr. Blake say, we gonna tell her she crazy too if us ever do get in to see her. Sheriff say, well, make sure you do and tell her she lucky she alive. When I see Sophia, I don't know why she's still alive. They crack her skull, they crack her ribs, they tear her nose loose off one side, they blind her in one eye. She's swole from head to foot, her tongue the size of my arm. It stick between her teeth like a piece of rubber. She can't talk. Or she just about the color of an eggplant. Scared me so bad I near about dropped my grip, but I don't. I put it on the floor of the cell, take out comb and brush, nightgown, witch hazel, and alcohol, and I start to work on her. The color tended bring me water to wash her with, and I stare at her 2 little slits of eyes. One of the things that jumps out to you when you read The Color Purple, in the midst of all of that protest language, all of those emotional tuggings about very hard topics, is that, well, Alice Walker and other African Americans who came to professional, cultural, societal, and even economic success in the 80s and 90s, who successfully moved into the American middle and upper classes, actually achieved the revolutionaries' goals that they were asking for. In some cases, their mothers and fathers were asking for in the 60s and 70s. These people actually won. And just like the feminists, the Native Americans, the gays and the lesbians, the African Americans really had no plan for what to do after they, to paraphrase from the Jeffersons, moved on up. What killed the revolution and expanded the win wasn't isms or actions, wasn't even political parties or legislation or cultural change. What killed the revolution and what gave it a win was the presence of economic benefit to the winners, i.e. capitalism, and those economic benefits accruing to the former societal accusers. There was money to be made in pointing at white capitalists, if you were an African American activist, and saying shame, shame, and then having money come in response. By the way, Alice Walker wasn't the only one who did this. I'm not laying this totally at her feet. Jesse Jackson did this move too. And of course, so did the race hustler and pimp Al Sharpton, who is continuing his shakedown grift on MSNBC and wherever else they will vet him at. By the way, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm too harsh in my analysis, if you think that this is not what you signed up to listen to on this podcast, just start poking around on the internet. Do your own due diligence. Do your own research. Prove me wrong. and take a look at most recently what happened to the millions of dollars that poured into post-Black Lives Matter, post-George Floyd, post-2020 Summer of Love, social justice NGOs, and to Black Lives Matter affiliated organizations. The money that poured in from not individuals, not small donors, but from large U.S. corporations and even the U.S. government during 2020 and 2021. Go and track the money that came to NGOs through USAID and other CIA carve-outs. Go track the money that allowed activists to buy million-dollar homes in all-white neighborhoods. African Americans like Alice Walker and their children, people in my generation, and their great-grandchildren, people in my children's generation, have won the argument in America. We are being treated like humans. We are being given the American dream. We have achieved the goal. And now the hard part begins, because now we have to live up to the standard of humanity that other truly free people all over the world who were formerly oppressed have to live up to. We actually have to do the hard work that comes after the celebration of moving on up. We have to start building and stop protesting. The worldview of the black middle class is becoming more and more American in its perspective versus separatist in its perspective. And this is particularly happening post-George Floyd. The worldview of the black middle class is also moving away from behaving or posturing itself as the quote-unquote consciousness of the American white majority. While this is happening at the same time, the worldview of the black underclass continues to decline into becoming more and more similar to underclasses and worldviews held by underclasses in other countries in the West, most notably Britain. You combine these two facts along with the fact that we are all living through right now of political realignment. Republicans and Democrats are switching places again politically after our last 80-year seculum cycle, and you've got the makings of a new thing coming on the horizon in the 21st century. A new thing that will still require a protest novel or glorified pamphleteering, and you will still have artists such as Alice Walker who will struggle to thread the needle between what they feel in their hearts and what they see in society or think they see in society and culture. But for leaders, this is going to be an interesting time because, well, leaders are going to have to make a decision on which side of the line they are going to fall. For leaders, the quote that stands out to me from Zora Neale Hurston, whose grave Alice Walker discovered and returned her literary presence to light, one of the many things that Alice Walker did coming out of the literary part of her talent, not the protest part of her talent. The quote from Zora Neale Hurston tells the story of the future of the quote-unquote Negro in America, at least I think in the 21st century. And I quote, "I am not tragically colored. There is no great sorrow dammed up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. I do not belong to the sobbing school of Negrohood who hold that nature somehow has given them a low-down dirty deal and whose feelings are hurt about all of it. No, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife." Close quote. Leaders, sharpen your oyster knife as you head into the 21st century. And well, That's it for me. Players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.